Thanks very much. Well, we're used to seeing her play an English Rose, but her latest film sees her step into a darker role as a Russian aristocrat. Who are we talking about? We are talking about Keira Knightley, who for the third time is being directed by Joe Wright, who worked with her on Pride and Prejudice and Atonement. But as Keira has been telling our very own Louise, there were signs years ago that she would one day step into Anna Karenina's shoes.
Dance with me.
I'm not used to being spoken to like that by a man I met once at a railway station.
I dare say, but if I'm not to dance with you, then I'm getting out of this operetta and going home.
I remember reading the book when I was about 18, but Joe Wright, who directed this and directed Atonement, remembers me reading it when we were doing Atonement, which would make me 21. It's really strange because I remember it as being this complete romance, beautiful, kind of sweeping thing. All of a sudden, of course, I was reading it last summer, just before we were about to start, and went, whoa,
it's quite dark, isn't it?
Really dark.
But it's my duty to remind you that we are bound together by God, and this bond can only be broken by a crime against God.
I have nothing to say to you.
And you have a son.
And I'm tired.
When you read the book, you really go, I think at certain points Tolstoy hates her. I mean, he seems to be sort of in love with her as well, but he really hates her, and morally, he's not saying this is who you should be or this is what you should do. I think he's actually doing quite the reverse, which is quite a difficult thing coming from a modern standpoint, to actually look at that and look at sort of the idea that leaving your husband could be completely morally reprehensible.
Your husband is impossible. His opinions are all wrong, but he talks so brilliantly he wins every argument.
What?
I called to take you home.
No, I'm staying. Send the carriage back for me.
Of course.
Jude Law, he's one part of the love triangle.
He is. He plays Karenin, yeah.
And almost unrecognisable, actually.
It's the worst haircut you've ever seen on any human being. I mean, poor man, he was doing press for another film when we were actually making, and he had that done to his hair, so he was walking around, and he was wearing hats doing all this press, and people kept going, it's outrageous he's wearing hats. And we were all thinking, no, you haven't seen what's underneath.
It's kind of bald, isn't it?
Yeah, they balded him out and then painted him white. And he was quite amazing because at the end of every single day he'd take off his makeup and look fabulous, and the rest of us would take off our makeup and look awful.
What are you doing?
I want his letter!
I think none of us wanted to simplify this thing into kind of going, OK, this is the baddie, because I think in some of the adaptations that's what they do. They kind of go, Anna is the goodie, Karenin is the baddie. I think the great tragedy of Anna is that she never recognises what's in front of her. You know, she can't recognise that he loves her in the only way that he can. That can never be enough. And in the same way with Vronsky, she has that moment of romance and that moment where it's all fantastic, and she doesn't understand that that moment can't last forever. So anything less than that means that he doesn't love her at all.
Action!
It's a very theatrical telling. It's
sort of set in a theatre set.
It's sort of set in a theatre set. There was a whole concept in Russia and aristocracy in sort of the 1800s, 1700s as well, where the aristocracy couldn't even speak Russian. They only spoke French or Italian. All of their social etiquette was based on the French and even more rigid than the French. Their houses were built and decorated in the style of the French. Their children, who would be brought up by serfs who would speak Russian, would be literally punished if they spoke the Russian language. So there was constantly this idea that they were playing characters and kind of denying this sort of Russian side of them.
Because it does ask quite a lot of the audience,
doesn't it?
We were talking about the fact that it's set in a theatre and all the rest of it. That's could be for some, you know, maybe challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, it's quite interesting because it's something that people who go to the theatre, audiences who go to the theatre, are required to use their imagination as soon as they step in that door. And I think in some ways that's what the theatre also represents. It's a space that we understand, that we're required to use our imaginations. In a way, cinema's lost that. You know, we've got into a way of filmmaking that is very naturalistic. Everything that needs to be seen will be shown to you. You know, we don't, as an audience member, we're not required to do anything. We just sort of let it wash over us. And it's sort of what I love about going to the theatre, is like you sit there...
And you've been in the theatre as well.
And I've been in the theatre, and it's a wonderful thing about being on stage. When you feel like that audience is with you and is part of the experience, they make the show. And that's sort of the same as this, in a way. I mean, the audience are going to be very much a part of this film because they are they have to use their imagination.
And some fantastic jewellery as well.
Amazing jewellery. It was all real.
Was it?
Yeah, it's lots
Even
of
the
diamonds. Oh no, every single one of those diamonds came with a very big security guard, and I really enjoyed wearing them. Unfortunately, I had to give them back at the end of the day, which was a real bummer.
You're a fabulous actress, you learn your lines, and lots of kids out there will be thinking, with dyslexia, and you were diagnosed with dyslexia, weren't you?
Yep.
Will think that's an impossible dream.
Yes. You know, I think dyslexia is one of those things, and it's like a wall that's in front of you, and it's very, very, very difficult to see over it. And I was really lucky because I had acting, and so it was like a carrot that was being dangled in front of me because I had to be able to read those lines in order to do it.
Right.
So I think I was really lucky in having that thing that I was interested in, and my parents used that like a carrot that was just like that, and I worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And unfortunately, that is what you have to do, and you have to find the ways around it. Now, I was incredibly lucky. I didn't have it very severely. By the time I was 11, I didn't need any extra help. But it is hard work, but it doesn't mean that you're stupid, and it just means that you work in a different way, and you just have to find the different way that you work in.
Filmed already, Can a Song Save Your Life?
Yeah,
which is, again, completely different.
Completely different. It's a modern-day piece about friendship and two people trying to make an album. And the reason I did it was because I did realise that I'd spent about 5 years making films where either I died or somebody died, and it all ended up very badly. And I just thought, oh, I'd love to do something positive.
And you learn to play the guitar, or...?
Well, I did my best. You attempted? I attempted. I got good enough to fake it, which was much better than when I started.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, the lovely Keira Knightley. We're sitting very close together, aren't we? And someone's hand is in shot.